Hello friends, you are welcome to today's class. So today we are going to consider under our English language, we are looking at active and passive voice. Can you repeat after me? Active and passive voice. What is a voice? Voice is a form of verb which shows whether the subject of a sentence performs an action or receives an action. Okay, so it helps us to know whether the subject is the one performing the action or receiving the action. Subject is the doer of a verb. The person performing the action is always referred to as the subject. So let's look at the active and passive voice definition. So what is an active voice? A verb is said to be active voice when it expresses an action performed by its subject. Okay, all right. So we have active voice. Now, for active voice, the focus is on the doer of the action. For active voice, the focus on the person performing the what? The action, that is the subject of the sentence. Now, let's move to the passive voice. A verb is said to be passive voice when the action it expresses is performed upon its subject. That is, when the action is performed on the subject, then such a voice is known as passive voice. All right. Now, for passive voice, the focus is more on the receiver of the action. The focus more is on the object of the sentence. Unlike active voice, the focus for active voice is on the subject of the sentence. Okay? That is, the subject is the person performing the action. But for the passive voice, the focus is on the object of the sentence. That is, the object is the inanimate object or animate object that the subject is performing an action upon. All right. Now, however, more than often than not, verbs are used in the active and less frequently in the passive. Okay. So we are going to consider examples of active and passive voice so that you can use it, okay, to form your own sentences. And whenever you see such, you'll be able to identify the active voice and the passive voice. Number one, active voice. He loves me. He is the subject, all right? Why me is the object, all right? So for active voice, he loves me. He is the one performing the action, okay? That's why it is underlined. He loves me. Then for the passive voice, this me will turn to what? I. I am being loved by him. I am being loved by him. Okay, so you reverse it. You start from the back, from the front to the back. Okay, to get your passive voice. Let's look at the second one. For active voice, I see the moon. Okay, then for the passive voice, the moon is seen by me. That's how you reverse it from the front to the back. Now let's move to the number 3 example. For active voice, the boy slaps his brother. Then for passive voice, you start from here, coming this way. Okay, that is, his brother is slapped by the boy. That is the passive voice. Let's look at number 4, active voice. The teacher is teaching the student. Then for the passive voice, you start from the front to the back. So the students are being taught by the teacher. The students are being taught by the teacher. That is the passive voice. Let's look at number 5. Number 5, Samuel ate the fish. That's the active voice. Then the passive voice is the fish was being eaten by what? By Samuel. You reverse it. It comes back. Okay? So active voice is moving from what? From the left to the right. That's active voice. While passive voice is moving from the right back to the what? To the left. That is how to solve it. Okay? How to write it. Then the number 6, the pastor, which is the active voice. The pastor preached a good sermon last Sunday. That's the active voice. Okay, can we reverse it from Sunday? Okay, the pastor preached a good sermon last Sunday. Okay, so a good sermon was being preached by the pastor last Sunday. That is our passive voice. Okay, so the next thing you want to consider is active and passive voice in different tenses. Okay, now for present tense, let's look at an example. He receives a letter. That is active voice in the present simple tense. He receives a letter. So what will be the present simple tense for the active voice? It will be a letter is received by him. A letter is received by him. Okay, now, so for the present simple tense, he receives a letter, and then the passive voice will be a letter is received by him for present simple tense. And then for present continuous tense, let's look at an example. He is receiving a letter. What will be the passive voice? It will be a letter is being received by him. Let's look at past simple tense for active voice. Example, he received a letter. And then the passive voice will be a letter was received by him. Let's look at past continuous tense. An example, he was receiving a letter for active voice. Let's look at the passive voice. A letter was being received by him. Then we move to present perfect tense. For present perfect tense, active voice, he has received a letter. He has received a letter for active voice. Then for passive voice, it will be a letter has been received by him. A letter has been received by him. And then we look at the past perfect tense. For active voice, an example, he has received a letter. He has received a letter for active voice. Then the passive voice, a letter had been received by him. A letter had been received by him. And then we look at the future simple tense. For future simple tense, the active voice, example, he will receive a letter. Future, he will in the future. He will receive a letter for active voice. Then for passive voice, a letter will be received by him. Then for going to tense, example for active voice, he is going to receive a letter. Then for passive voice, a letter is going to be received by him. And then for the infinitive, active voice example, he has to receive a letter. Then for the passive voice, a letter has to be received by him. And then let's move to the modals. Okay? For modal tense, he should receive a letter for active voice. He should receive a letter. Then for the passive voice, a letter should be received by him. And then let's move to the last one, the modal perfect tense. For active voice, he should have received a letter for active voice. Then for passive voice, a letter should have been received by him. So these are the active and passive voice for different tenses. And you can all see everything at a glance. Tenses, active voice, passive voice. Then present simple tense, present continuous tense, past simple tense, past continuous tense, present perfect tense, past perfect tense, future simple tense, going to tense, infinitive, modals, and then modal perfect tense. So these are all the tenses and how to use them. Thank you and bye for now.